Welcome back to the Coruscant Nights podcast. Thanks for joining me again today. I am your host Cooper, and today we will be venturing into the world of Star Wars Rebels Season 3. This is the third part of our 4-part review series of Star Wars Rebels. If you don't remember from the first video, Jack and I were going to touch on every single season of Rebels because that was kind of the one show we hadn't actually done yet. We hadn't spoken about in its entirety. Why not dedicate 4 episodes to it? So this is part 3. We're talking about season 3. Hope you guys are following along. Jack, again, is not with me this week. He's still overseas, but he will be back next week for the podcast, which is exciting to have my co-host back. But today, the focus is on Rebels Season 3. Let me know down in the comments what you think of Star Wars Rebels Season 3. It is regarded by some people as the best season of the 4. It's got some of the most iconic moments, some of the best episodes in Star Wars Rebels, and potentially in animation for Star Wars. That's how good this season is. What I remembered from this season when I was very little, watching it for the first time, was Thrawn and Maul. Those are the two things that I really remembered from my first watching. Everything else was kind of a bit of a blur. Like, there were some episodes that are iconic enough that you can't forget about them. But for the most part, this was all fresh to me. So getting to see it with fresh eyes was a really beautiful thing. So let's start off where all of our Rebels podcasts so far have started off. What was my favorite episode? And to be honest, I think this might be a universal agreement with everyone. It certainly is with Jack, and I'll touch on what Jack wanted to say about this episode. Trials of the Darksaber. It's by far and away the best episode in Season 3, and potentially has the best emotion, writing, and voice acting in any Star Wars animation project. This is a Sabine and Kanan episode. Mainly it's Sabine, but it's a Sabine and Kanan episode, and we don't really get to see that pairing very often in Rebels, unfortunately, but this episode was beautiful. Kanan's kind of stubborn ways about teaching Sabine how to wield the Darksaber, his assurance that, you know, there will people who will challenge you if you have the Darksaber, and he's basically trying to make her tough and prepared and ready, and Sabine's still holding on to that internal conflict and that trauma from her past and what she did, and that all kind of culminates into that explosive fight at the end when Kanan gives her the saber, gives her the trust to wield it, and then she just goes to town on Kanan, and it shows how lethal of a warrior she is, and it shows how strong her emotions are. So by far and away, Trials of the Darksaber is the best episode. Jack wanted to say the same thing. He thinks it's got the best tension, it's got the biggest stakes, and that it is just the best overall. It's got the best dialogue and the best development for Sabine that we've seen. So, and to be honest, I don't know if Jack would say this or not, or if you guys would say this. I look at this Sabine in Trials of the Darksaber episode and compare it to the Sabine we have in Ahsoka. Don't get me wrong, nothing against Natasha. She's a great actress, and I think she plays Sabine perfectly, but they seem very different. You don't get that hunger, that just pure emotion from the live action Sabine. It's toned down. It's more like a season 1, season 2 Sabine. Whereas this is really, you get a sense of what she's gone through. And obviously in season 4, we'll explore that a bit more, and in the first couple of episodes, and we'll discuss that with in our season 4 recap and review. But this episode absolutely is the best Sabine episode. It's one of the best. It's one of the best. You get a history of the Darksaber right at the start with Fen Rao kind of narrating it, and it's just a beautiful introduction. It's a beautiful continuation of the legacy of Mandalore, of the legacy of the Darksaber. We saw it in Clone Wars with Pre Vizsla and Maul, and then obviously in the Visions and Voices episode, which came before this, and I'm pretty sure it showed up in season 2. I think so. Maybe it didn't, but it was definitely early in season 3. Anyway, so getting to see the continuation of that story, perfect. And obviously we know where it ends up, in the hands of Moff Gideon sometime in the future. We might never ever get an answer to that, but we can speculate. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that most of you will agree with me. Trials of the Darksaber is the best episode from season 3. More things I'd like to touch on that were really quite positive about season 3. You can't go any further than Thrawn. Again, I use the example of live action Thrawn. Live action Thrawn was so highly anticipated for me. Getting to see Lars Mikkelsen, who voices Thrawn, actually play him, and kind of that, not demeaning, but that strategic, that analytical thinking, that always 1 or 2 steps ahead sort of thinking. That's what I love about Thrawn, and you see that so many times in season 3. You don't really get it in the live action. In the live action, it's more like Thrawn has a plan, it doesn't go his way, but then he spins it so it's into a victory. Whereas this one, he knows everything that's going on. He knows, and the rebels are constantly trying to foil the plan, and Thrawn just is there. He can predict things, he's analytical, and that is the Thrawn I love. We get to see Thrawn be a bit of a badass as well, take down some Dark Trooper droids. Oh, that one episode, I believe it's Through Imperial Eyes, which is a great episode, by the way, great episode, where Ezra and Chopper sabotage the room, Thrawn's office, with the Dark Troopers, and he just pulls the blaster on them and shoots them down. Oh my goodness. Have you ever seen a more badass character moment than that from Thrawn? Incredible. Obviously, he's pretty quick to learn that, I can't remember if it's Constantine or List. I think it was List. The lieutenant was not actually the spy within the Empire. As we learn in later series, there are many spies within the Empire, which is cool. But yeah, Thrawn is fantastic in this season. And that final showdown with the Bendu, he can't accept that he will lose. He can't accept that there's something otherworldly that can determine and see his future. But obviously it can, and we do get that in season 4. But season 3 Thrawn is fantastic. Another character we can't go past, Maul. In another really good episode, Twin Suns. That's probably one of the more iconic episodes that people think of. That is probably the episode that when people say Rebel Season 3, that is the episode they think of, Twin Suns. Now, Twin Suns is a good episode. It's not the best, and I think that it drags quite a bit when we're with Ezra, and it takes so long to get to Obi-Wan just for it to end in a couple minutes. I understand you want to keep Obi-Wan sacred, that's fine. The whole build-up to the showdown was fantastic, and the showdown itself was fantastic, as you will see in the thumbnail. But, yeah, just Maul in this season, really good. Obviously, we got the tease of him right at the end of season 2. This one, he's just a menace. He is toying with people. He's playing with people for fun. Obviously, we don't know where he is, like, at this point in time, I guess, with the crime syndicates and Crimson Dawn, because he seems so focused on getting Obi-Wan that stuff kind of takes a back seat. So it would be interesting, or it would have been more interesting to explore his exploration into the world of the syndicates and the crime syndicates and Crimson Dawn. We can hope for a series or something that'll happen, but yeah, it would have been great to get some development in this season. But Thrawn and Maul, beautifully written, their stories. One ended really well, one set up its, I guess, not really conclusion, but it's set up its continuation very well. So both very well done. I mentioned Twin Suns before. Another thing I didn't mention was the last battle episode. The one that was the Rex-focused episode against the droids. That was really cool. Loved the Clone Wars music at the start and the end. That was pretty nostalgic. And I remember hearing that for the first time on the Disney Channel. And I remember getting really excited because I'm like, oh my God, what are we doing this week? Yeah, that was good fun. That was really good fun. So yeah, the last battle episode was great. Got the Kalani back. Got the droids and the clones working together against the Empire. Just beautiful. This season was beautiful. And the one other character I want to talk about being just an absolute standout this season, one that I didn't really expect to be this good this season, was Agent Callus. His story is so, like, intrinsically worked through this season. It's really nice. And seeing his, like, learning about, obviously learning last season that he was Fulcrum, or a Fulcrum, I suppose. And then this season seeing him more involved in, like, feeding that information to the rebels was really good. And then ultimately, Thrawn figuring out he's the spy and then cornering him. And he puts up a good fight against Thrawn in that 0 Hour episode. But yeah, Callus is a great character in this season. I really, really, really don't remember how much of season 4 he's in, but he was really good in season 3. I think he played the double agent really well. He made sacrifices. That Through Imperial Eyes episode, which was a him-focused episode, I will admit, that was really clever in showing how he's been able to survive. You know, swapping the little cylinders that were the speakers, the identification cylinders that access the prisons. That's good. That's cool. That's what you want. And that's obviously the plan they had in mind. And it paid off really well. So I liked Callus in this season. I think it was great. And I really can't wait to see him in season 4. Because I don't really remember much of season 4. So getting to see him again will be really beautiful. Now, we have to take a turn for the worst. We have to discuss the negatives of season 3. Because there is negatives. There are flaws in this season. It's not perfect. So, let's start with my least favorite episode. And I don't know if this one's universal, but the Warhead episode with Zeb and AP5 and Chopper was probably the least inspiring, least interesting episode. I didn't necessarily find it boring. It was a little bit amusing at times, but there really wasn't enough for me to care about in that episode. And it seems so against Zeb's character to be so trusting of a droid that's just showed up on their unfindable planet on Adelon, and then being able to, thinking it's a good idea to bring it back to base. Like, clearly this thing is not yours. No one's been here to leave it, because the only other thing on the planet is these spider creatures. So it's come from space. Don't trust it. And Zeb's like, nah, it'll be fine. And AP5 warns, and I don't think Chopper warns, but AP5 definitely does. And you know what happens. There's a big like fight that happens. So I can't remember the consequences of that episode. I really didn't like it. I didn't think it was good. I didn't think it was a reflection of Zeb's character. It made me realize how much I like AP5. He sounds, I don't know who does the voice, but he sounds so much like Alan Rickman doing Severus Snape. So much. Like, you put a droid filter, like a voice filter, on Alan Rickman, and you've got AP5. It's fantastic. I love it. AP5 is such a funny character. Probably one of my favorites from Rebels. But Warhead, no go for me. That is one of the more disappointing episodes of the season, unfortunately. Then we get into other, not negative things per se, but things that I necessarily didn't like. And we keep going forward with the droid episodes, mainly the double agent droid, which was Chopper and AP5 getting onto an Imperial ship, stealing some access codes to the Lothal spaceport, and getting out of there. But the Lobot characters, I cannot remember what they're called. They're like Mentats from the Dune series, if anyone knows what they are. Or like Spacers, or something like this. Not Spacers. Yeah, no, Spacers from Foundation. They're kind of just... They're quick mathematically. They look like droids and whatever. They got the little thing around their head. Anyway, it's like against a ship of them, and they take over Chopper's body, and Hera is really trusting that Chopper is fine, even though it's obvious, really obvious, that something is wrong with him. Anyway, I thought it was a really weak episode. Probably not as weak as Warhead, but still not great. Then, probably my most controversial take, and I cannot believe that I've actually thought about this and that this is the resolution I've come to, because I really do like Mandalorians and the exploration of Mandalorian culture. But the episode that was, I can't remember if it was called Legacy of Mandalore, or I don't know, it was the one after Trials of the Darksaber, where Sabine and Ezra and Kanan go to the planet that the Sabine's family is on, and there's a bit of a fight, and they're not welcoming of Sabine and the Jedi. I didn't like it this time around. It was one of my favorite episodes from my initial watch. This one, not a fan. Not a fan. I thought that they were incredibly stubborn And they also changed their minds incredibly quickly when Gar Saxon came. Gar Saxon, again, rest in peace, Ray Stevenson, another beautiful Star Wars character. But Gar Saxon is a great character, and we obviously get some more of him in Clone Wars. But I found that like when Gar Saxon came and was involved, it was a lot more intriguing, and I feel like we needed to see more of him besides that one episode prior to this episode of him to build him up as that villain for Sabine and the Mandalorians. But he's still really good in this episode, but just the episode itself, it lacks the character motivations, the character dialogue. Just no, it's not my cup of tea, unfortunately, and that's kind of where my thought is with the Mandalorians and the Mandalorian culture. Obviously, going into season 4, we've got our Heroes of Mandalore episode, double episode to start the season, which was a really good one the last time I watched it, and I'm really excited to see it again. And we'll see how that goes. I think Bo-Katan's in that episode, which is cool. I think, from memory. Anyway, that's for later to discuss. But yeah, Mandalorian episodes in this season, not my favorite. Another episode that I was kind of underwhelmed by, Ghosts of Geonosis. It was like the first episodes after the mid-season. And it's got Saw Gerrera in it. It's a 2-part episode. It's got Click-Clack, the Geonosian, the last Geonosian. I thought it was pretty weak. Like, obviously, we as the audience know what Click-Clack is referring to with the 2 circles in the sand, the being the Death Star. But the constant reference back to it and the inability of our other characters to understand, and Saw's literal abuse and treatment of Click. I know he's a hard and rough guy, but he's physically assaulting Click-Clack. Like the last Geonosian that we know of, supposedly. And he is so disrespectful towards it. I could not believe it. Was hard to watch, actually. So, yeah, Ghost of Geonosis wasn't great. I love Saw Gerrera. I think he's a great character. I don't think animation does him justice. Even in Bad Batch, I don't think he's that good. But live action is the Saw Gerrera that I like. Forrest Whitaker is the Saw Gerrera I like. So yeah, that's kind of I label them bad things. It's subjective, of course. The last thing that I want to mention, obviously this isn't going to be a very long podcast, that's okay. Jack would have more to say. But my biggest chills moment, I debated over this for a long, long time. And originally it was from the Legacy of Mandalore episode where Ursa Wren shoots Gar Saxon when Gar Saxon's about to shoot Sabine. I literally thought, the first time I saw that, Sabine was gone. She was gone. I thought she was gone. Just the way it reacted. They juked me. They juked me so hard. And obviously I remember it. But still, to this day, I get chills at that moment because of what it could have represented. What it could have been. And what it could... Like, obviously you don't want to end Sabine's character there. But what it could have been. And the legacy that would have left. And the villain that Gar Saxon would have been. We didn't get that, but that's okay. My biggest chills moment, this is not going to surprise anyone. It's however many times I watch this, it still is, it's beautiful, it's poetic, it's like poetry, it rhymes. Obi-Wan versus Maul. The build-up, the music, the showdown, and the finish. All within that about minute. They face off, even just the mind games that they're playing with each other. Maul, he's got the one lightsaber, he puts out the fire, and then he ignites the other saber after Obi-Wan ignites his, obviously after wanting to like protect Luke and what Luke is, and Maul kind of threatening that, I guess. And then just the changing of stances. Obi-Wan goes with his classic stance, the little peace sign that he does and holds it up, and then he switches back to Qui-Gon's stance. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And then the 3 strikes, the hit up, the block, and then the slice down the middle. It is... I remember first seeing this and being really disappointed that this was how the whole episode... This was what the whole episode led up to, this 3 lightsaber clash fight. But in all honesty, it didn't need to be anything more. Maul and Obi-Wan have fought so many times throughout history, and their fights have been long, they've been tiresome, they've been physically grueling. This one is between 2 old men, 2 old hermits, and I was going to say and Dathomirian, a Jedi and a Sith, a fallen Jedi, two hermits showing down, and obviously Obi-Wan proving the patience and the skill and the awareness of the Jedi is ultimately what got the best of Maul. Maul was too ambitious. It's beautiful, and I still get chills to this day. The strike down the chest and Maul's just like instant stop. Chills. The sound effects, the music. Some might wonder why I don't have Twin Suns as my favorite episode. It's just because I'm not gonna put a 2-minute, 3-minute segment of a 23-minute episode as my favorite thing. I think that Trials of the Darksaber does so much better across the whole episode, whereas Twin Suns, the best bit of the season, is only 2 or 3 minutes long. But this duel, we spoke about it in our favorite lightsaber duels video. If you haven't checked that out, go watch it. Would highly recommend. That was a good one. We did speak about Maul versus Obi-Wan from Rebels, and how beautiful it is and what it represents for these two characters. And obviously, we all knew it was going to end one way and one way only, with Maul's demise, because we'd seen Obi-Wan through the original trilogy. We didn't know what Maul's story was going forward, and it made sense that Maul had been hunting for so long for revenge that this was how his story ended. And he seemed okay with death. He seemed to accept it. And that's such a tragic thing for this character who's just been through the mill every single time we see him. He has lost family. He has lost dignity. He has lost respect. He's lost self-respect. He's lost power. He's lost his brother. And to see him finally accept that and embrace the coming light is just, yeah, beautiful. You guys already know. It is fantastic. I don't need to speak any more about it. It's just a beautiful summary of Maul's character in just this 1 minute segment. But that is pretty much all I wanted to mention about Rebels Season 3. Again, a great season of television. Probably the best. It's more consistent than Season 2. I don't know if I'd have it as my favorite. I think that Season 2 just has some of those episodes that are a bit better for me. I think Shroud of Darkness, Fate of the Force, Twilight of the Apprentice, those are like top tier television episodes. Whereas you don't really, the Twin Suns, even the finale of Season 3 isn't spectacular. It's good, but it's not spectacular. Twilight of the Apprentice is a spectacular finale. Family and Farewell, or Family Reunion and Farewell, that is a spectacular finale for Season 4. This one, 0 Hour, not as much. But still, Season 2 had some great episodes. Season 3 had some great episodes as well. I think it was consistently better across the 22 episodes, but just Season 2 had the better episodes overall. I really can't wait to cover Season 4. This whole journey, being able to rewatch Rebels again, has been so rewarding, and it's filled some sort of childhood hole in me, not being able to really remember what this show was, and being able to see the first 3 seasons and then going into the 4th season. It's been so special to me, and I'm sure Rebels holds a special place in a lot of people's hearts as well. I remember waking up every morning, popping it on the TV and watching Rebels Season 2, Season 3, Season 4. And it was just such a joy. And now I get to share those with you, and you get to share that with me. And it's just a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So I think I'm going to leave it there. Make sure to look out for our Rebel Season 4, whether it comes in the space of whatever's left of this year, or it comes at the start of New Year, or of 2025. Not too sure. We've still got a lot to cover on the channel. Obviously, Skeleton Crew's coming up. That'll be exciting. Andor Season 2, probably be a May release. So we'll have some time to fill between Skeleton Crew and Andor. So we'll have to wait and see what we've got organized and planned for that. But if this is the last Rebels episode for the year, thank you for tuning in to 3 episodes of Rebels content. We appreciate it. I think getting the views on these videos shows that the fandom for Rebels is still so passionate and alive. And yeah, it's a fantastic thing. So look, we'll see you guys next week, but thanks for tuning in, and yeah, see you next time.